I Finally Let Go, a Sovereignty Series Finale, Part 2. In the last post, we sat with the courtroom in our hearts, that hidden place where pain begins presenting evidence against God, where questions begin turning into accusations, and where our need to understand quietly becomes a demand for Him to explain Himself before we fully trust Him again. That is a heavy place to live. And if we are honest, many of us know what it feels like. We may not say it out loud. We may not even admit it easily to ourselves. But when life unfolds in ways we would not have chosen, when prayers seem unanswered, when the wound remains open, when God could have acted and did not act the way we hoped, something in us can begin to resist Him. Not always openly, not always rebelliously. Sometimes it looks like guarded worship, careful prayer, quiet distance, a heart still believing in God but not fully resting under Him. That is why the end of Job's story matters so deeply. Job had cried out, Job had asked, Job had defended his integrity. Eventually, Job had demanded that the Almighty answer him. But when God finally spoke, He did not do what Job expected. He did not explain the heavenly scene. He did not tell Job about Satan's accusation. He did not walk him through every layer of unseen purpose. He did not defend himself to the man who had demanded an answer. He reorders the room. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me." Job 38, verses 1 through 3. And then God asks the question that puts everything back in its place. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." Job 38, verse 4. That question is not cruelty. It is mercy of the deepest kind, because Job does not need an explanation as much as he needs to be brought back into reality. He needs to remember who God is and who he is before God. He needs to be released from a position no creature can carry. He needs to stop standing in a courtroom he was never meant to preside over. And so do we. One of the great mercies of God is that He does not allow His people to remain comfortably seated in the wrong chair. He does not let us sit forever in the judge's seat, weighing His actions, measuring His silence, demanding His defense, and calling that faith. At some point, if we are willing to listen, He brings us back to the truth. He is God. We are not. That is not meant to crush us. It is meant to free us. Because fighting God does not make Him less sovereign. It only makes us less at rest. It keeps accusation alive where trust is meant to grow. It keeps bitterness close enough to become our interpreter. And when bitterness becomes our interpreter, God's silence begins to look like indifference. His restraint begins to look like neglect. His timing begins to look like failure. His refusal to act the way we prayed begins to look like evidence against His goodness. That is a dangerous place for the heart to live. Letting go does not deny the wound. It refuses to let the wound define God. That matters because surrender can be misunderstood. Letting go does not mean we suddenly understand why the child suffered, why the diagnosis came, why the betrayal happened, why the prayer seemed unanswered, why the evil continued, why the door closed, why the grief stayed, or why God could have acted and did not act the way we hoped. Letting go means we stop requiring God to explain Himself before we trust Him. It means we stop confusing our inability to understand with His failure to rule. It means we stop treating our pain as the final authority on His character. It means we stop demanding that sovereignty become acceptable to us before we bow beneath it. And somewhere in that surrender, not all at once, not always dramatically, but truly, the soul begins to breathe again. Job's circumstances had not been explained when he first began to see it. God had not answered the questions Job had been asking. The mystery had not been unfolded in front of him. But something changed when Job saw God rightly. And the change was not that Job finally understood everything. The change was that Job remembered his place before the one who did. Then Job answered the Lord and said, "Behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once, and I will not answer. Twice, but I will proceed no further." Job 40, verses 3 through 5. Later, Job says it even more clearly. Then Job answered the Lord and sings, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Job 42, verses 1 through 2. That is where this whole series has been leading us. Not to the place where we can explain sovereignty fully. Not to the place where every tension disappears. Not to the place where suffering becomes simple, unanswered prayer becomes painless, or God's silence becomes easy to bear. But to the place where we can say we know He can do all things, and no purpose of His can be thwarted, even when we do not understand, even when we would not have chosen it, and even when we still ache. Job continues, "Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me which I did not know." Job 42, verse 3. There are things too wonderful for us. Not wonderful in the way we sometimes use that word, as though everything feels beautiful or pleasant. Wonderful in the sense that they are beyond us. Too high, too deep, too woven into the wisdom and purposes of God for our finite minds to hold. That is not an insult to us. It is a reminder that we are not God. There are secret things that belong to Him. There are things He has not explained. There are connections we cannot see, purposes we cannot trace, mercies we do not yet recognize, judgments we are not equipped to evaluate, and reasons that may never be handed to us in this life. But the things He has revealed are enough for trust. He has revealed that He is sovereign. He has revealed that He is good. He has revealed that He is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. He has revealed that He is not careless with His people. He has revealed that Jesus knows suffering, not from a distance, but from inside human anguish. And in the garden, on the night before the cross, Jesus gave us the purest picture of surrender ever lived in human flesh. "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22, verse 42. There is no shallow surrender there, no pretending, no denial of agony, no forced smile over suffering. Jesus asks. Jesus brings the desire of His heart before the Father, but He does not demand that the Father's will bend to His human anguish. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Luke 22, verse 42. That is not weakness. That is trust. That is faithful allegiance under the will of God. And maybe this is where we begin to understand what letting go really is. It is not passivity. It is not pretending we do not care. It is not refusing to pray, refusing to grieve, refusing to ask, or refusing to bring our whole heart before the Lord. Jesus Himself asked. Job himself cried out. The Psalms are full of honest lament. Letting go is something deeper. It is the moment we stop making our trust conditional on God's explanation. It is the moment we stop trying to hold God accountable to our understanding. It is the moment we release the right we never truly had, the right to approve His rule before we rest under it. And in that release, something happens. We are not surrendering to chaos. We are surrendering to the sovereign God who has held us the entire time. We are not letting go into emptiness. We are letting go into His hands, the same hands that formed the world, the same hands that hold all things together, the same hands that were pierced for us. And that is why letting go is not the loss of faith. It may be where faith finally stops trying to control what it cannot carry. We have said God is in control. We have wrestled with what that means. We have felt the pushback in our hearts. We have seen the places where our expectations, our fairness, our need for understanding, our resistance, our questions, and our unanswered prayers all pressed against His sovereignty. And now at the end of this journey, the invitation is not to explain Him. It is to trust Him. Not because every question has been answered, not because every wound has healed, not because every outcome now makes sense, but because He is God and we are His, because He is the potter and we are the clay, because He is the King and we are His people, because He is the Father and we are His children, because Jesus is Lord and there is nowhere else to go. So maybe the final question is not, do we understand what God is doing? Maybe the final question is, can we finally let go? Can we let go of the demand that He explain Himself, the need to make every outcome pass through our approval, the quiet courtroom we have been carrying in our hearts, and the belief that trust must wait until understanding arrives? Can we lay our hand over our mouth, not because the pain is small, but because God is God? And can we say with trembling honesty and surrendered faith, not my will, but yours, be done? As we sit with this today, we take a moment to reflect on where we may still be holding on. Where have we been waiting for God to make His sovereignty make sense before we rest in Him? Where have we quietly put him on trial because his actions or inactions did not align with what we hoped, expected, or believed should happen? And where might he be inviting us, not to deny the ache, not to silence honest prayer, but to release the demand that he answer to us? If you are willing, share your reflections or questions in the comments so we can learn and walk this journey together.